Welcome to the Seed Creative Podcast, the podcast where we discuss both video production and just life in general. The goal of this podcast is the same as the goal of our business, to make a difference in people's lives. Hi, Gavin.
Hey, George.
Welcome to the Seed Creative Podcast.
Thank you.
You're normally not in here.
Usually where Nick is right now.
Why are you in here today?
Because we're going to be talking about a project I did a lot of work on.
Sweet. So, if you are audio only, this might be a little bit boring. So we encourage you to go to our YouTube channel and check this video podcast out, because we're going to be dissecting, well, maybe not dissecting, but just talking about a series of videos that we did for a company called GAF. They are a roofing shingle company, and these videos are going to be used on TikTok to promote them in Lowe's and Home Depot stores across the country. Right?
Yeah.
Sweet. So before we get going, why don't you tell us a little bit about our first initial meeting and concepts for these videos and how that went?
Originally, GAF reached out to us and they were wanting, I think, more of a silly TikTok video, right? Something that's pretty unique. And we came up with the idea of, okay, so first of all, you need to know GAF is a roofing company. They make like shingles and stuff. So we had the idea of a dragon comes up and lands on these people's roof, and he's like stomping all over it, blowing fire everywhere, but they're not concerned at all because they have a GAF roof with fire resistance and all that kind of stuff. So the dragon just gets frustrated and flies away. And the people in the meeting, they were loving it. They were like laughing, having a great time watching it. And then they just stopped laughing and they were like, yeah, we're not going to do this.
That's literally exactly what happened. So when they came to us, they were like, be as crazy as you want. And then they were like, oh, that's too crazy, so chill it out. To be honest, at first I'm not going to lie, I was a little salty about it. I was a little frustrated. But the deeper in we got, and as we started working with them and understanding who they were, the more we understood why it was better to pivot and go funny, humorous, but not so like wacky and silly. So it all worked out in the long run, and I really am happy with these videos. So we then shifted gears and we came up with the concept of, okay, we need someone who would play the role as sort of a Mayhem from, is it Allstate? Okay, Mayhem or Flo from Progressive, or like a character that is like the main character in every video, but then situations and things like that around that character change, but there's always something cohesive about it. And so we said, okay, what if we had him standing on a GAF roof and he's just talking about all the different, aspects of why these roofs are good, all the different warranties that might be available, things like that. And we could do, since it's vertical, let's play with the vertical aspect ratio, and we could have the walls become transparent and have like a family beneath. So it's like a family is beneath them doing some stuff, so the roof is keeping the family protected. He's on the roof talking about the roof, and then the outside is what it is. It's either a beautiful summer, beautiful day, or it's raining, or maybe it's a fall day and there's like a tornado or a storm happening, stuff like that. So then, once we had that concept, they loved it and they approved it. We had to go through all sorts of logistics of, we were going to travel to New Jersey, we were going to film on a roof there at their home office, and then it was like, well, we could go to Florida, we could go to Texas. There were all these places, and we were like, you know what? Like, y'all just need to figure out a way to build us a roof in our studio so we can use green screen, and then it's going to cut costs for y'all, and it's going to make things easier for us. We're going to have a better product. And it took a while to get to that point. And then they finally were like, okay, let's do it. They approved that. We got the roof built, put the green screen up. Now, keep in mind, we've never done this before. So this is all based on theory. So we're like, okay, if we're going to do this, we know that the camera needs to be looking up at him, because if we film him straight on, it's going to look off, the perspective of the camera. So we had to like do all these tests where we film with the camera just on the floor, so it looks as if it's looking up at a roof. Things like that, and all the testing worked out really well. So then we get into, and now is when I'm going to let you start talking. All right, if the house is the same, the background has to be the same. And we've already been approved for this, and we've never done anything like this. And I'm like, Gavin, can you help us? So now you get to talk about what you got to do, how you did some of this stuff, and then we'll go from there. So tell us about like when I came to you and was like, hey, we need the background to look the same, and we need storms, and we need all kinds of stuff.
Well, our first idea was to just take a video of some trees, and just have like the same video, but maybe colored a little bit different for each separate TikTok. But I can't remember exactly what the issues were that we ran into with that.
Well, the issue is, number one, there's no beautiful green trees outside.
That's a good point.
So
all the leaves are gone.
That was one. And then it was also, we have to emulate storminess, and we have to have the trees blowing in the wind, and then we have to have the trees blowing like even harder in the wind and things like that. And it's like there's not really a way to do that, in the middle of winter, when there's no leaves, there's no real storms that are going to do that for us, stuff like that.
What we ended up doing, instead of filming real trees, is we decided to use CGI trees. So I opened up Blender, and I have this add-on for Blender called, I think it's called Botanique, something like that. I don't really know how to pronounce it.
I believe you, because I know nothing about Blender. You're the Blender guy. I'm like, it's so foreign to me.
This add-on has all kinds of assets I can use, like grass, rocks, trees. So I used some of the trees, just got a variety of them and placed them around in the scene, lit it to match the lighting that we would have in the studio, because we filmed the roof in the studio. That was an inside thing. And set them up with animation for the wind at varying levels, because it could either be a calm day or a rainy day or a stormy day or something crazy like that. So all the trees you see in the video are fake. I also made the grass, and some of the videos have rain and leaves. I made those too in Blender in different ways. And
then the foreground trees.
Yeah, the foreground trees too.
Yeah, foreground trees too. So the whole idea with all of this is we need to make it feel close enough to real that when the people are watching it, they're not thinking, oh, well, obviously this is fake. Like, when you tell them, okay, the trees are fake, then they're like, oh, okay. But you would never know. You would never think that way. But it all has such a cohesive look. So why don't we just play this first video for a second, and let's talk about like what we did and how we did it.
Over the past 100 years, GAF has made some pretty cool things, like America's #1 selling Timberline HDZ shingles. In fact, we've grown into the largest roofing manufacturer in the US. GAF has risen to the top for so many reasons that, honestly, we could never hold the attention of the average TikTok viewer for more than a few seconds. So, as a leader in the roofing industry, we invite you to swipe to learn more. Now available at Lowe's.
All right, so go ahead and pause it. All right, sweet. So that's the first one, and that one is so just kind of generic, baseline. This is who we are. A few things that you'll notice in these videos is the way that we did the text. So, all right, let's define roles real quick. So, Nick and I kind of came up with the original concept of dude standing on the roof, there's something beneath, and there's storms going on. We then gave that information to Adam, and Adam created scripts based on verbiage that we got both from the marketing agency that we're working through for GAF and just GAF's own website. So he created scripts and did an AV list. So that's an AV script. Then we had to send that back to GAF and to the marketing agency. We had to go back and forth a lot until all that got approved. And then when it came down to it, all three of us filmed it. So Nick, Gavin, and myself filmed the videos. I kind of directed Ben, our actor, on what to say, how to say it, things like that. And then when we got into the post-production, it was primarily me and Gavin on post, and Gavin did the generation of trees and foreground trees and grass and stuff like that. And then I did a majority of the editing. Adam did like a preliminary edit, and then I came in and did fine tunes of editing, and then the composition and color grading of everything. So it was truly a team effort. Gavin, I could not have done trees and made things look as good as you. And then something that you said, you were like, and you think that maybe the compositions I did, just because I have experience in that stuff, probably would not have been as good. And so you and I working together really hard on this project kind of shows the best of what each of us are capable of doing when working together. Does that make sense? Would you agree with that? Yeah, so anyway, so that's a really generic video, but like in this scene right here that we have a still frame, you know, we've got now available at Lowe's, swipe to learn more. Everything had to be formatted for TikTok. So back earlier in the video, you can notice a lot of text and stuff is framed left a little bit. All of that was intentional because we're taking in mind how the TikTok user interface looks, and we don't want our text and stuff like that to be covered up by like buttons and share buttons and comment buttons and all that stuff. And then in TikTok for ads, you swipe left. So we've got an arrow just kind of indicating when it says swipe to learn more. That arrow is just a way of telling the viewer swipe left to learn more. So that was the most basic video out of all of them that we did. All right, let's watch the next one. I can't tell if the next one or the one after are my favorites. I want you to tell me which one's your favorite. All right, let's check out the next video.
In the storm, you don't have to worry about customer callbacks for lost shingles when you install GAF Timberline HDZ shingles. No matter how nasty old Mother Nature gets, GAF Timberline HDZ roofs can roll with the punches. Plus, when installed with qualifying accessories, they're eligible for the 15-year wind-proven limited wind warranty. So we couldn't actually film in a storm, but we think you get the idea. Come on, guys. Seriously? Now available at Lowe's!
Sweet. Yeah, so there was a lot of sound design on that one. I like that one so much. And I go back and forth. Maybe it is my favorite. I think that one was one of the sillier ones that we did pitch, and they were okay. They liked it because in that one we reveal that we're in a studio. We see the green screen behind him. You see me and Nick being morons. I'm dumping leaves on him. Nick is blowing him with a fan and blowing leaves all over him. So talk a little bit about that one and what you had to do in regards to making it look and feel, you know, slightly realistic. It's an exaggerated look, but it does feel like, man, he kind of looks like he's standing out there in the middle of a storm.
So all I really did was I got the base project, which was just a calm day, and I sped up the speed for the trees to make them blow faster. I softened the lighting and brought it down a good bit for the trees and the grass and stuff. And for the leaves, I had a particle system with like a plane above a fake version of the roof in Blender, and I just had leaves spawning from the top, falling down with all kinds of swinging and swagging motions. I don't know if that's a word.
It is.
Okay. And the main issue I had with that was the leaves, because for the weirdest reason, the particle system, that's just like simulating the movement of all the leaves. The biggest issue I had was whenever they would hit the fake roof in Blender, they would all just like clump up and just start rolling around in one spot. So I just had to keep the hardest part was literally just tweaking that
Mm.
until I could get it to where they weren't doing that.
So you hit something that you didn't actually explain. You also did a 3D scan, right, of the roof with your phone, brought that into Blender so that the fake leaves would react with a fake real roof. Right? So talk about that a little bit, like what app you used and how does that work? And why is that important to do something like that?
Well, I don't remember which app I used. I have a ton of different 3D scanning apps just on my phone. Because, like the newer iPhones have this LiDAR sensor for 3D scanning and stuff like that. But I actually scanned that for a different TikTok. If you
Ah.
want to wait. It was for the globs.
Oh, but you already had the scan in there. No, we don't have to wait.
Okay. Well, like I didn't use it for the leaves. It was
Oh, you didn't?
specifically for the glob.
Oh, okay. So you did the leaves with just a fake. You just
Yeah,
did a
it's just
plain.
like two planes like
Oh,
that.
okay. Yeah, yeah. So you made a fake roof.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, we'll talk about that.
I mean, I just put two planes and I put
But
them like that
Oh, Gavin. But why is it important
just
to
so that the leaves have something to collide with, and
Right.
that's about it.
That's about it. So people don't like some people that may be watching or listening don't understand that if you hadn't done that, the leaves would just fall essentially in front of him and either look like two things, either look like it's just going in front of him or look like it's just going through the roof. And that wouldn't make any sense, right? So you needed the leaves to be able to interact. So they drop down and then they bounce off of the fake plane, but it's transparent. You can't see it when you export it. So it looks like it's bouncing off of the roof. And that's important just to add to the realism of the shot.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sweet. So you did something similar for this next one that we're about to watch. So why don't we take a look at that?
Severe wind visits everyone's home at some point. Set your mind at ease by installing a GAF roofing system with Timberline HDZ shingles. Do your worst, wind.
GAF has a wind-proven 15-year limited warranty. Swipe to learn more. Now available at Lowe's.
Sweet. So let me talk a little bit about this one because I think this one was probably technically the hardest one in my opinion, like overall, at least for me when editing, because, and we'll get to this, but Gavin, he made the trees, he made the rain, he made the grass, but what I had to do was I realized that when we filmed this, he was dry as a bone and the roof was dry and just it wasn't looking right. We didn't want to get him soaking wet because we had other videos we needed to do. We didn't want his hair to be soaking wet because we needed to do other videos. We shot all of this in a single day. And so what I ended up having to do was basically kind of figure out and come up with a way to do this kind of sheen and shine on the roof to make it appear as though the roof is wet. And then I also had to do that on his skin and on his rain suit. He's wearing a yellow rain jacket and a rain pants and boots and stuff like that. And I figured out a way to do it in Final Cut Pro, and it worked so well. To be honest, I can't even remember which, but it was a free, or not even free, it was a built-in effect, but then I messed with blend modes, and essentially what it does is it's looking at the highlights only of everything, so the highlights of the roof, and using this blend mode and different opacities, it makes it look wet. Like, it's kind of crazy. I think the effect was called just like graphic or something like that. So it makes it look like kind of a black and white graphic. But then again, I only selected highlights and then did some blending modes and stuff, duplicated the clip above it, blending modes so that the highlights only are being affected on the clip beneath. It was a lot of work to make it look wet. You'll also notice his audio is a bit different in this one. So we filmed it two ways. We filmed one where he's just kind of yelling and saying, GAF is doing that, blah, blah, blah. And he's yelling and it sounded really good, but his hair and his jacket and stuff isn't blowing. and we're supposed to be emulating, wind and stuff. So then we did another take where we're using a leaf blower, and we're just right up in his face, blowing him, with the leaf blower and everything. And I realized that take not only looked better, but to me, when I used voice isolate or dialogue isolate, voice isolation, whatever it's called in Final Cut, it gave it this weird sort of washy sound, which I ended up liking for this video because it almost sounds as though water or something is kind of getting in the microphone. That's what it sounds like to me. Like if he's standing out in a storm, you're not going to get beautiful, perfect audio. If you're wearing a lav mic or something, it's going to sound weird and bad and washy because there's rain everywhere. And so I ended up using those takes with the voice isolate because I like the look better, and I ended up actually liking the sound better. So now we can get to your part, which you did a How-To Tuesday recently. And if you want to check that out, go look us up on Instagram. They're on YouTube Shorts, TikTok, whatever. But Gavin has a 2-part video on like exactly how he made this rain. But just briefly, why don't you talk about this? Final Cut does have a rain effect, and it does not look very good. And what Gavin did looks so much more realistic. So that's why we opted to have him make it.
So, I mean, it's pretty similar to the leaves, except instead of using like an asset of a leaf I found online or anything like that, I just added in a little icosphere, gave it a glass shader so it's real transparent, and then instead of just letting those little drops fall from the plane above, I had it to where they were shooting down at an angle so that when motion blur was turned on, you'd get these long streaky lines that looked like rain. And
and then for your so talk about your lighting as well, because if you're shining a light directly at rain, you can't really see it. But so what did you do in order to combat that so that the rain would kind of show up for the video?
And I just added a sun into my scene and just angled it in a random direction. I didn't really put much thought into it.
Okay. Well, what you did is you backlit it a little bit.
Well, yeah.
Yes. And so backlighting rain, this is actually important if you're a photographer or video person. If you really want to sell that rain is in your scene, you need to backlight the rain, because that helps it show up so much more than if you're lighting it from the front or the side or something like that. So like photographs with backlit rain look absolutely so beautiful and cool, because it's like the rain is like has this white transparency going on. And so that's what's going on here in the scene as well, is because the rain is more backlit, it's more visible and it shows up more. So that's it.
All right.
Next video.
Sure.
Next video.
Attention roofing contractors. Are you sick and tired of all the callbacks and time wasted dealing with dissatisfied customers due to the installation of inferior roofing products? The GAF roofing system has you covered. With any GAF lifetime shingle, your customer can receive a lifetime limited warranty. Think about all those positive online reviews you could rack up. GAF Lifetime Roofing Systems. Swipe to learn more.
That's a basic
Now
one.
available at Lowe's.
That's a basic one. We can just keep going. That was one that was like just a quick, he's barely even ever on the roof. He's just standing there at first, and then he's pretending to be a frustrated contractor, and then a happy contractor toward the end. So like we said, some of these are pretty just kind of cut and dry.
Hey TikTok homeowner, are you happy with your roof? I've only got a few seconds to tell you about GAF's Timberline HDZ shingles, America's #1 selling shingle. It's made by GAF, which over the last century has become the largest roofing manufacturer in the US. Sheesh, out of time already? Swipe to learn more about GAF's #1 selling Timberline HDZ shingles. Whew. Now available at Lowe's.
Sweet, you can pause that one. So that one was, once Gavin came up with all these assets for the front trees, back trees, and the grass and stuff like that, I just kind of could use them all as a template. And so with this one, you didn't really do a lot of work on, but I did a few things. So the very beginning, you can see Ben it looks like there's glass over top of him, and the idea is if you're swiping through TikTok, it almost looks like he knocks on the glass of your phone, and it's a really cool look. I was able to use it was a plugin for Motion VFX, but I don't even remember which one it was because they have a bunch of different plugins with glass effects. And all I did was I did the glass overlay, brought the opacity down a bit, and then I just did a quick scale up and then scale back down with each knock. And it works as an adjustment layer, so it almost looks like he's coming forward too. But again, it just sells the idea that he's like trapped in your phone or something. And so it's like it scales from 100 to 105 and then back to 100 in like 3 frames. It's like 100 and then 1 frame of 105 and then back to 100. And then 100, 105, back to 100, 100, 105, because he knocks 3 times. And so that was really cool. And then I used a clock and like some other just little animated effects for Motion VFX, but to give the time, and that was about it on that one. So we can keep going.
When it comes to roofing, things have improved quite a bit since the old days. The GAF HDZ Timberline Strike Zone nailing area
With this
has
one, he never ends up even on the
99.99% nailing efficiency with the highest visible nailing area, so that you spend more time on other things. Like getting a double shot espresso latte at your local coffee shop, or getting more jobs. Thank you, GAF Strike Zone Nailing Area. Swipe to learn more about the GAF Strike Zone Nailing Area. Now available at Lowe's.
All right, the next one's really a lot of fun. That one we just watched, that's Adam at his best, just being silly. And, you know, that one was pretty easy, but there were, you know, we had to get like an old ladder from a guy that I know. He has a farm, and he had this old wooden ladder, and we had to, I actually ended up going and just buying women's overalls at Target, and I got the biggest ones that I could get so they'd fit Ben because he's tall. But they look, I mean, identical to like 1800s, early 1900s style overalls. It just happened that they were in the women's section, but they look amazing. He looks like this old timey roofing contractor. And so, and then I ended up using actually an effect that I built a long time ago, and I call it Seed 8mm, I think is what it's called. But I ended up using it to give it that weird like overlay 8mm old school effect video, and it worked really well. So this next one, again, I did a ton of work on in regards to just getting it to look the way that it does. Gavin, you know, of course, did the foreground trees, background trees, and the grass. But this is the actual roof on this house, and we're showing what it would look like if algae's on it. Now, the reason I used this roof is because it is not a GAF roof, but I'll assure you that is not what this roof looks like in real life. I just muddied it up and made it look nasty. And I did that really, it was pretty basic. So you can see this green nastiness on the left side and the right side. All that is I did a color board and then did a color mask, and then I just went green with it and feathered it out, and it makes it look like there's green algae. And then I ended up using 3D text in Final Cut, and I laid the 3D text down at the same angle that the roof is, and I used a moss, what's the texture? Not texture, but what's the other word? Shader? No, I guess it would be texture. Like, that just makes it look like that instead of just pure white text. It looks like this mossy look. And then I did another overlay effect, which I did this in all of them actually. It's called dapple lighting, and that is that's on every video, and that is out of Motion VFX's M Collage. But it's this dapple lighting, and I made it look as though there's a shadow on the left side and the right side of the algae text. And I did that because in real life, in reality, in this shot, the roof really did have dapple lighting, and on the left side and right side, there were trees casting shadows, and then there's a bit of this bright hot spot kind of in the middle there. And so I just recreated that with the dapple lighting so that there's shadow over the A and the L, and then there's not as much shadow on the G, and then there's more shadow on the A, E, and the question mark. So a lot of work goes into these to make it look as though it's really just sitting on that roof, above and beyond what I think a lot of people think about. And then as we continue to watch this video, you'll see this algae turns into just a clean GAF roof. And then the next scenes are the ones where Gavin really comes into play. So let's go ahead and click it.
Is your roof suffering from unsightly blue-green algae stains? Don't worry, GAF has the right roof for you. GAF HDZ shingles contain a proprietary time-release algae-fighting technology to help protect your roof from those unwelcome invaders. Not today, algae. GAF wins again. Swipe to learn more about GAF Stain Guard Plus Algae Protection. Now available at Lowe's.
All right, so now why don't you tell us about the work that you did on this one? Would you say, like, was this one of the harder ones for you? Or was it not that bad?
I think they're all about the same.
All about the same? Okay.
Except the leaves and the rain being the easiest. For this one, this is the one that I 3D scanned the roof for, because the little algae balls I made were actually a little bit transparent so you could see through them. And I thought about maybe just taking a picture of the roof, but I figured why not 3D scan it, because that's fun.
Yeah.
So I 3D scanned it and matched it up to where it matched the camera angle and looked like correct and stuff, you know. And basically the only reason it was there was so that the algae balls would have something to collide with and slide down. But mainly, because I could have done that with more planes, the main purpose was that you could see each individual shingle, so that way the color would kind of come through the algae balls.
Yeah, so, and then didn't you also talk about how the shadows, you 3D scan so that the shadows would be like more realistic in comparison to just a flat plane?
I was thinking maybe you would be able to tell the shadows like going into the creases of the shingles, but you couldn't.
You couldn't end up.
That was
seeing
the
it.
idea, but it didn't make a difference.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, well, it ended up looking awesome. So, and again, that was kind of Adam's idea of like, almost think, if you've ever seen Mucinex commercials, the little green, phlegm fella, these are very similar in the way that they look to that, because we were like, I mean, what in the world, how do you make algae? Like, what does that look like? But we looked a bunch of stuff up online, and there is like this slimy, nasty algae that gets on roofs, and we're like, well, it could look like this if it were rolled up into a ball. This is probably what it would look like. So that was a bit of imagination there. All right, let's see the last couple videos. We can just see all those at once. I'm not sure which ones they are.
Hey, roofing contractors, callbacks for
this
inferior
is just
shingles
another
can
basic
cost
one.
more than just time and resources. They can hurt your reputation. The best-selling GAF Timberline HDZ shingles with layer lock technology feature a high-visibility strike zone nailing area. With layer lock technology, nails placed in the strike zone area pass through 2 layers for a durable shingle-to-shingle seal. GAF is always working to make their products like the Timberline HDZ shingles faster and easier to install, because at GAF they understand that more time means more business. Plus, it never hurts to have a few more positive reviews. GAF HDZ Layer Lock Technology. Swipe to learn more.
Just let this one.
Now
let the next
available
one
at
roll.
Lowe's.
Oh, that was it. Yeah, so, like we said, there were a few that were just really basic, but the thing is now that you're watching those basic ones, I guarantee the viewer, you're probably not even thinking about, oh, he's standing on a fake roof and there's no outside anything and these trees are fake and the grass is fake. You just accept it. You know what I mean? And that was the ultimate goal, is that you aren't thinking, wow, that looks so like CGI, that looks like green screen. The idea is that your mind just accepts that he's standing outside on a roof. And I think we accomplished that. So good job, Gavin. High five. Super proud of you. I told Gavin when he first started, and then I also told Gavin, I've told him for years, like, dude, keep working on this Blender stuff, keep figuring it out. And I said, because eventually we're going to need it, and you're going to need to be able to deliver. And look what happened. You literally saved the day on all, because all of the videos needed that background. and we wouldn't have been able to do it without you. So super proud of you. Good job. Is there anything else you wanted to say?
Try Blender if you haven't already. It's free.
It's
You know.
scary.
It's free though.
I know it's free. You just
It can't be scary if it's free.
Dude, I'm terrified of Blender. I made a cup one time in Blender like 7 years ago, and I was so proud of it, but it took me like an hour and a half.
That was 6 years ago though.
True.
Need to make something in 2023.
It's probably easier now too, because I was using like a crappy computer and like
Yeah.
I think I was actually using a 2013 iMac.
I bet your Mac Studio could handle it really well.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, I'm pretty frugal. Don't really spend a lot of money here. But I think that if we get, 2 or 3 more like heavily needed Blender projects, that we'll probably end up getting a dedicated Blender PC here for the studio. Just because right now Gavin either has to work from home or he's able to remotely log into his PC to get the most out of Blender. And so, it worked. I think it was slightly annoying for GAF, but we just want to make sure that Blender is here we want to make sure that like, oh, Gavin's going to be doing a lot more of this before we invest, several $1,000s potentially into a PC. We want to make sure that this isn't like a one-off and then, okay, we'll use Blender again in 6 months. Well, if that's the case, we're just going to just work from home, But if it starts to become a trend and we start kind of getting hired because of our competency in doing content like that with green screen and stuff, then yeah, we'll invest in it.
Sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, he's excited about it. Sweet. All right, well, that's it. Thank you for checking out the Seed Creative podcast. For you audio people, like I said, if you listen to the whole thing, God bless you. But I think that you would have a much better experience checking us out on YouTube. So go find us on YouTube, like and subscribe, all that stuff. Drop a comment, talk to us. Also check out our weekly series that we're doing every Monday, every Tuesday, every Wednesday, every Thursday. We have new content in a variety of series that we're releasing weekly. So go check that out on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and everywhere else that we're doing it. All right, bye. This podcast was produced by Nick Golden with executive producer George Edmondson, edited by Nick Golden and Gavin Manning. Be sure to subscribe, drop a like and a comment. Tune in every Monday for brand new podcast content, and we'll see you on the next one.